The reading of my grandfather Conrad's will took place in a stark conference room at a Portland law office, the air thick with anticipation from our sprawling family. As the lawyer announced that the entire $500 million estate would go to whoever found a golden key, chaos erupted instantly. Uncles shouted bids to private investigators, cousins huddled over phones forming backroom alliances, and someone even started a live stream to turn the hunt into public spectacle. I sat there, Lucas, 23 years old and a new teacher from the family's quieter branch, feeling the weight of it all. Uncle Mark and my cousin Troy wasted no time, burning through cash on drones and high-tech scanners while spinning media narratives to claim moral high ground. Meanwhile, Cousin Jess transformed the frenzy into her influencer empire, posting dramatic updates that fueled lawsuits and smear campaigns, splintering the clan further with every viral clip. Weeks turned into months, and the family's scavenger hunt devolved into a series of frustrating dead ends that only deepened the divides. Uncle Mark hired a team of psychics who claimed visions of hidden vaults in abandoned mills, but their predictions led nowhere except to drained bank accounts and bitter arguments. Troy, ever the tech enthusiast, coordinated a group to tear through the walls of Grandpa's old Denver offices, scanners beeping wildly as they uncovered nothing but dust and outdated files, prompting yet another round of lawsuits over property damage. Jess kept the chaos alive online, her live streams drawing millions of viewers who speculated wildly, turning family members into unwitting celebrities and fueling anonymous smear campaigns that accused rivals of hiding clues. Through it all, I stayed on the sidelines, holding on to a quiet weekly ritual that felt like the only anchor in the storm. Every Sunday, I'd drive to Grandpa's workshop in Boulder, the same weathered shed where he'd taught me chess as a kid. The board still sat on the workbench, pieces carved from oak, and I'd spend hours moving them across the squares, replaying our old games. He always emphasized patience over bold risks, saying the real win came from seeing the board clearly, not charging ahead. As the family tore itself apart chasing shadows, I reminded myself that maybe the key wasn't about the prize but the lessons he'd embedded in those ordinary afternoons: endurance, focus, the value of steady steps. The first anniversary of his death arrived on a crisp autumn morning, the workshop feeling emptier than ever. I packed his favorite sandwich tin, the one with the faded blue enamel he'd carried to every job site, and tucked in an old Hamilton pocket watch he'd given me years ago. It ticked softly in my pocket as I drove, a relic from his days as a young engineer before the family fortune took root. Settling at the workbench, I polished the watch absent-mindedly, my thumb tracing the gold case until a hairline scratch on the back plate snagged my nail. Curiosity pulled me in. I pried open the back with a screwdriver from the drawer, and as the movement loosened, a tiny golden key dropped onto the wood, engraved with the numbers 1408. Before I could process it, a faint click echoed, a hidden recorder activated, and Grandpa's voice filled the air, warm and deliberate: "To the one who didn't abandon the ordinary days, this is yours. Trust the quiet path." My hands shook as I pocketed the key and replayed the message, his words a direct rebuke to the frenzy outside. The engraving pointed to a safety deposit box, so I headed straight to the Springfield Bank, about an hour's drive south. The vault attendant raised an eyebrow at the small key but led me to box 1408 without question. Inside waited bundles of cash dated back decades, crisp stacks tied with rubber bands, a leather ledger detailing shadowy transactions, and a flash drive labeled "Truth." Plugging it into my laptop later revealed files, emails, recordings, documents proving Grandpa had been coerced for years by Vince Diamonds, a crime boss who'd leveraged a youthful debt into a lifetime of pressure. Blackmail, forced investments, the works. It explained the fortune's murky edges. The way he'd withdrawn from us in his later years. I didn't hesitate. From a payphone outside the bank, I dialed 911, explained what I'd found, and handed everything over to the investigators who arrived within the hour. They secured the scene, took my statement, and by evening, the pieces connected to launch a federal case. Vince's operation unraveled quickly: arrests, asset seizures, and the probe began scrubbing the estate, tracing tainted funds and isolating what was clean. The media storm shifted from treasure hunt to scandal, with Jess's streams now interviewing former victims, though the family lawsuits paused as scrutiny turned inward. Months later, after the dust settled, nearly $100 million stood confirmed as untainted. That's when the second will surfaced, hidden in a lawyer's safe and triggered by the investigation's resolution. It stipulated the funds would split only if each heir presented a plan to turn darkness into light, no wild grabs, but real purpose. I was named executor, a role that felt both burdensome and fitting. For the first time in a year, relatives gathered not in conflict but collaboration. Uncle Mark proposed legal aid clinics for extortion targets, drawing from his own law background. Troy pitched tech tools to detect financial coercion early. Jess outlined a documentary series centering the victims' stories, not the payoff. Even distant cousins chimed in with support networks for families shattered by crime. We reviewed each proposal in neutral meetings, voting on viability, and the estate began redistributing toward causes that honored Grandpa's hidden struggles. Today, the key and the watch sit on my desk at home, a quiet compass amid the paperwork. I still visit the Boulder workshop every Sunday, but now I bring my newborn son, cradling him as I set up the chessboard. He gums the pawns while I move the pieces, passing on the real inheritance, choosing truth and endurance over fleeting comfort, even when it shatters old habits and egos. That's how a family gets saved, not spent. Through the ordinary days that build something lasting. Years after the estate settled, the family's transformation held steady, but new challenges emerged as the clean funds fueled our initiatives. Uncle Mark's legal aid clinics expanded nationwide, helping dozens escape coercion similar to Grandpa's ordeal, and I oversaw the allocations as executor, reviewing quarterly reports in my modest Portland apartment. Troy's tech startup developed apps that flagged suspicious financial patterns, partnering with banks to prevent debts from turning into lifelong traps. Jess's documentary series aired on streaming platforms, drawing praise for its raw focus on victims, though it occasionally stirred old family tensions when episodes revisited our initial scavenger madness. We met annually in Boulder, not for hunts but for progress updates, where arguments shifted from greed to impact, debating how to scale programs without losing their core purpose. My role as executor brought unexpected scrutiny, especially when a distant relative, Aunt Lila, resurfaced with claims that Grandpa had hidden another layer of secrets. She'd been estranged for decades, living in Seattle, and arrived at our meeting with faded letters suggesting unreported assets tied to Vince's network. The group tensed, whispers of another hunt bubbling up, but I called for calm, proposing we verify through official channels rather than rushing in. We hired independent auditors, and their findings revealed minor oversights, small properties Grandpa had forgotten in his ledgers, but nothing tainted. It reinforced the second will's wisdom: turning darkness into light meant facing truths methodically, not chasing shadows. Balancing this with teaching proved demanding. At the elementary school where I worked, my students often asked about the family treasure after Jess's series went viral, turning me into a reluctant local figure. I used it as a lesson in class, sharing anonymized stories of endurance over easy wins, much like Grandpa's chess games. One afternoon, a student named Mia stayed after, confessing her family's struggles with debt collectors, echoes of our past. I connected her parents to Uncle Mark's clinic, watching from afar as they rebuilt, a small victory that felt more valuable than any inheritance split. The workshop visits evolved too. With my son, now a toddler named Elias after Grandpa's middle name, Sundays became interactive sessions. He'd toddle around the shed, stacking chess pieces into wobbly towers while I narrated simplified versions of our family saga. The golden key hung on a chain above the workbench, a tangible reminder, and I'd let him hold the Hamilton watch, its tick a steady rhythm against his tiny palm. One weekend, as rain pattered on the tin roof, Elias pointed to an old toolbox Grandpa had used for repairs. I hadn't touched it since the discovery, but his curiosity prompted me to open it. Inside, amid rusted tools, lay a sealed envelope addressed to me in Grandpa's handwriting, for when the light needs sharing. The letter detailed his early days, before the debt to Vince, when he'd built the family business from nothing through honest partnerships. It included contacts for old allies who'd since retired, suggesting they could mentor our initiatives. I reached out, and soon we formed advisory boards, former engineers and entrepreneurs who added expertise to Troy's tech and Mark's legal efforts. Jess incorporated their interviews into a follow-up series, humanizing the light we were creating. The envelope also held a blueprint for the workshop itself, revealing it as a potential community center. We renovated it over months, turning the space into a hub for local chess clubs and financial literacy workshops, where families learned the patience Grandpa taught me. As executor, I faced a pivotal decision when the federal case against Vince concluded with his conviction. Remaining assets from his empire, seized and cleaned, were offered for redistribution. The family debated fiercely: invest in expansions or create scholarships? We settled on both, establishing funds for education in underserved areas, tying back to my teaching roots. Elias attended his first workshop event at age 3, moving pawns with other kids, the cycle continuing. Looking back, the real shift came not from the money but the habits we broke. Relatives who'd once schemed now collaborated, egos tempered by purpose. I keep the key and watch as before, but now they guide a broader legacy, one where ordinary days build resilience for many. Elias will inherit that, learning early that saving a family, or a community, starts with choosing truth every time. As the workshop hub gained traction in Boulder, word spread through local networks, pulling in volunteers and even drawing attention from national nonprofits. I managed the day-to-day as executor, coordinating with Uncle Mark to integrate legal workshops into our schedule, sessions where attorneys explained contracts and debt traps, helping attendees avoid the pitfalls Grandpa had fallen into. Elias, now 4, became the unofficial mascot, his laughter echoing as he demonstrated chess moves to new kids. Troy visited often, upgrading our tech with free installations of his detection software, running demos on how algorithms could spot coercion early. Jess contributed by filming promo clips, her influencer skills repurposed for outreach rather than drama, though she still battled trolls who romanticized our old hunt. One spring, a crisis tested our resolve when a scandal hit the news. A whistleblower from Vince's former circle claimed overlooked ties to one of our clinics. The family board convened urgently via video, tensions rising as accusations flew. Some wondered if Mark's connections had blinded him. I stepped in, proposing transparency. We'd commission an external audit and pause allocations until cleared. The process dragged for weeks, interviews and document reviews that unearthed no faults but exposed how Vince's shadow lingered in unexpected places. It forced us to refine protocols, adding ethical clauses to every proposal, turning potential division into a stronger framework. Teaching remained my grounding force. My classroom discussions evolved, incorporating real-world ethics from our story. Students role-played scenarios of tough choices, like turning in a found wallet or speaking up against unfairness, tying back to Grandpa's lessons. During parent-teacher nights, several families shared how the hub had helped them. One dad credited our financial literacy class for negotiating lower medical debt. It reinforced why I stayed involved. The inheritance wasn't just funds but tools for change, rippling outward. Elias's curiosity grew, prompting deeper explorations of the workshop. On a quiet afternoon, he discovered a forgotten drawer under the workbench, pulling out yellowed photos of Grandpa as a young man, smiling beside early business partners. One image showed him at a community chess tournament, trophy in hand, before the debt had soured things. We pieced together more of his history, and I added a display case for the artifacts, key, watch, photos, captioned with simple explanations for visitors. This inspired a family tradition, annual storytelling nights where relatives shared Grandpa's unvarnished past, not the mythologized fortune, fostering bonds over shared vulnerability. The fund's impact scaled impressively. Our scholarship supported over 100 students in their first year, many from backgrounds like mine, modest branches overlooked in the chaos. Troy's app launched publicly, adopted by credit unions nationwide, while Jess's series won awards, funding expansions into international victim support. But success bred envy. A tabloid article painted me as the quiet kingpin, speculating on hidden riches. Reporters camped outside my school, but I issued a brief statement: the real wealth lay in the work, not wallets. The family rallied, issuing joint denials that highlighted our collective efforts, defusing the hype. Personally, challenges arose when my wife suggested we move for better opportunities, perhaps closer to expanding clinics in Denver. I hesitated, tied to the workshop's rhythm, but after consulting the board, we compromised: remote executor duties with monthly Boulder commitments. Elias adapted seamlessly, drawing maps of our family empire in crayons, emphasizing connections over conquest. His perspective reminded me of Grandpa's voice on the recorder, valuing ordinary days amid bigger shifts. By summer's end, the hub hosted its first major event, a chess marathon fundraiser, with pros volunteering alongside our kids. Mark judged matches, Troy live-streamed highlights, and Jess interviewed participants on resilience. We raised enough for 2 new clinics, and as Elias checkmated an opponent twice his age, I felt the full circle: truth and endurance not just saving our family, but weaving it into a larger tapestry. The key on its chain caught the sunlight, a subtle nod that habits broken once could remake legacies entirely. Fall brought expansion to our network, with the Boulder hub serving as headquarters for satellite programs across 3 states. As executor, I traveled more, auditing clinics in Seattle where Aunt Lila now volunteered, her past grievances channeled into advocacy for elder financial abuse. Elias joined when possible, his backpack stuffed with chess books, turning drives into mini lessons on strategy. Uncle Mark's team handled the legal backbone, filing amicus briefs in cases mirroring Grandpa's, while Troy's app updates integrated AI for predictive alerts, catching patterns before debt spiraled. Jess pivoted her content to educational shorts, collaborating with influencers on coercion awareness, her old live stream flair now aimed at empowerment. A turning point came mid-autumn when federal officials approached me about a class action suit against remnants of Vince's syndicate. They'd traced more victims through our ledger files, and our initiatives positioned us as key allies. The family board debated involvement, risks of renewed scrutiny versus the chance to dismantle lingering threats. I advocated yes, citing the second will spirit: darkness into light meant proactive strikes. We committed resources, assigning Mark to lead coordination, Troy to analyze data trails, and Jess to amplify survivor voices in media prep. Preparations consumed months, with strategy sessions in the workshop where Elias sketched superhero plans on scrap paper, unknowingly capturing our ethos. School life intertwined unexpectedly. A colleague, fresh from grad school, proposed partnering our class with the hub for a civics project on family legacies. Students researched ethical dilemmas, interviewing relatives via video. Mine shared tales of Grandpa's patience over pursuit. One presentation, by a girl named Sophia, detailed her grandmother's escape from a predatory loan, crediting our scholarship. It sparked a school-wide fundraiser, kids selling baked goods for the clinics, raising thousands. Elias beamed from the audience, his pride a quiet validation that the ordinary, baking, learning, sustained the extraordinary. Back at home, the watch and key prompted reflections during quiet evenings. Polishing the Hamilton, I replayed Grandpa's recording, its message evolving with time, not just for me, but a blueprint for all. Elias, sensing the routine, asked to hear it, his questions probing: why hide it? Was Grandpa scared? I explained simply, framing fear as a teacher, truth as the counter. He nodded, then challenged me to chess, his moves bolder, echoing the growth we fostered. It led to a family-wide initiative, mentorship pairings, where elders guided youth in skills like coding or law, bridging generations fractured by the hunt. Challenges persisted, though subtler. Troy's startup faced a buyout offer from a corporate giant, tempting but laced with strings that could dilute our mission. We negotiated terms ensuring independence, a win that taught endurance in boardrooms. Jess dealt with platform algorithm shifts, her reach dipping until she adapted with interactive Q&As on resilience. Aunt Lila's return stirred minor rifts, her blunt style clashing in meetings, but we mediated through workshop retreats, chess games resolving debates, patience prevailing. By winter, the class action launched successfully, settlements funneling aid to hundreds. Our funds swelled ethically, enabling a national conference in Portland, site of the original will reading. Relatives reunited there, not in conflict but keynote speeches, Mark on justice, Troy on innovation, Jess on storytelling. I closed with Elias at my side, holding the key aloft. This unlocks more than boxes, it opens paths. Attendees, from victims to volunteers, applauded, the room a far cry from that chaotic conference years prior. As snow dusted Boulder, Sundays resumed with fresh energy. Elias set up the board for a group game, including neighborhood kids, while I oversaw renovations for an expanded library of Grandpa's blueprints. The legacy felt solid, habits of truth weaving through decisions large and small. Saving a family, it turned out, extended to communities, one steady move at a time, endurance not as burden, but as the enduring force. Spring thawed the paths to the Boulder Workshop, where our programs now included youth mentorship circles, drawing teens from urban centers grappling with economic pressures. As executor, I streamlined operations, digitizing Grandpa's ledgers for educational use while negotiating grants that matched our ethical standards. Elias, at 6, led his first chess club session, his confident explanations mirroring how I'd learned, patience as power, not force. Uncle Mark expanded clinics to rural areas, handling cases where isolation amplified coercion, and we linked them to Troy's app for remote monitoring. Jess launched a podcast series, interviewing global experts on legacy building, her episodes topping charts and funding scholarships without sensationalism. A subtle shift tested our unity when distant cousin Derek, who'd sat out the early hunts, proposed merging our efforts with a for-profit venture. He argued efficiency, scaling through investors, but the board sensed dilution of purpose. Meetings grew heated in the workshop, chess analogies flying, one flashy move can trap the king. I mediated, suggesting a pilot partnership with strict oversight, and after audits, we proceeded cautiously. It worked, injecting capital without compromise, but it highlighted evolving dynamics, older relatives mentoring the ambitious, egos yielding to collective good. My teaching career intersected profoundly when the school district invited me to develop a curriculum on financial ethics. Inspired by our story. Collaborating with Troy, we embedded app simulations in lessons, students tracking mock debts and spotting red flags. Elias joined as a guest speaker, sharing the key's tale age-appropriately, his poise drawing parental interest. One evening, a parent approached after class, revealing her brother's entanglement in a modern pyramid scheme, Vince's echoes in digital form. We connected her to Mark, resolving it swiftly, a reminder that the inheritance's reach grew through everyday interventions. The watch's rhythm guided personal milestones. On Elias's birthday, I gifted him a replica chess set carved like Grandpa's, and we replayed the game's origin story, how the pocket watch hid the key, symbolizing hidden strengths. He examined the real one closely, noting the scratch that started it all, then asked about fears we'd overcome. It prompted a family archive project, digitizing photos, letters, recordings into an online vault accessible to heirs. Jess designed it user-friendly, Troy secured it against breaches, and Mark ensured legal protections. Elias contributed drawings of family heroes, framing Grandpa not as victim but victor through truth. External pressures mounted as media revisited our saga in a documentary special. Sensational angles resurfaced, the Golden Key heist myth, prompting harassment at the hub. Protesters, misled by clickbait, demanded transparency on funds. We responded with open houses, tours showcasing impacts, a wall of gratitude letters from aid recipients. I addressed the crowd personally, holding the key, this isn't treasure, it's a tool for turning pain to purpose. Coverage shifted positive, boosting donations, but it strained me, sleepless nights questioning if we'd strayed from ordinary days. Elias noticed, initiating a reset ritual, workshop walks discussing moves, literal and figurative. One hike revealed an overgrown corner of the property, a forgotten garden Grandpa had planted for stress relief. We revived it, planting vegetables with volunteers, tying it to sustainability workshops. It became a metaphor for our work, nurturing roots amid storms. Troy adapted his app for community alerts on scams, piloted there, while Jess filmed garden stories for her series, Humanizing Resilience. By summer, the archive launched, with a virtual tour ending at Grandpa's voice message, now shared ethically. The family gathered for the unveiling, proposals evolving, Mark's global legal network, Troy's AI ethics lab, Jess's multimedia academy. I stepped back slightly, training Elias's generation in executor basics, ensuring continuity. As dusk fell over the garden, we played chess under string lights, Elias's strategy winning the game. The key gleamed on my chain, watch ticking steadily, endurance weaving through generations, saving not just family but futures, one truthful choice at a time. Autumn leaves blanketed the Boulder Workshop grounds as our initiatives marked 5 years strong, the garden yielding its first full harvest for community shares. As executor, I focused on succession planning, grooming Elias, now 8, through hands-on roles like leading junior chess tournaments that doubled as ethics seminars. Uncle Mark retired his practice to consult full-time, his clinics now self-sustaining with trained pro bono networks. Troy's AI lab innovated predictive tools for global use, partnering with NGOs, while Jess's academy trained young creators in ethical storytelling, her podcast evolving into a nonprofit radio show. A milestone arrived with the federal government's recognition, our model cited in anti-coercion legislation, inspired by Grandpa's ledger. The family board celebrated in Portland, revisiting the law office for a symbolic plaque unveiling, From Hunt to Harmony. Elias presented a slideshow of impacts, thousands aided, scholarships awarded, lives redirected. Yet, whispers of complacency surfaced, Derek pushing for aggressive expansions that risked overreach. We tabled it, recommitting to measured growth, chess style, secure the center first. Teaching wrapped my year with a class trip to the hub, students planting seeds in the garden while discussing legacies. Elias guided them. His voice steady, Grandpa hid the key because real wins take time. One boy, facing home pressures, later joined our mentorship, a quiet success. Evenings found us replaying Grandpa's recording, the watch's tick syncing with Elias's questions on perseverance. The key, now duplicated for the archive, symbolized shared guardianship. As winter approached, Sundays blended reflection and action, board games turning to strategy sessions for the next phase. The inheritance endured, not in dollars but decisions, truth over temptation, endurance as family glue, saving us all through sustained, ordinary valor.